There are curses in the universe so ancient and so vile that even the darkest archives of the Inquisition refuse to record them in plain script. There are weapons that should never have been forged, technologies that defy the Emperor's laws and mock the boundary between flesh and machine. But none are so feared, so whispered about in kill teams and covert stations, as the things some call a virus and others call a hunger. The Obliterator Virus is not a plague of the body alone. It is a rewriting of the soul, a slow, merciless fusion of man and weapon, where bones smarten into barrels, nerves tangle into firing systems, and ammunition sings through veins like molten metal. It spreads not through touch, but through knowledge, through forbidden code, through machine prayer twisted into something heretical. And those who become its host find that death, for them, is no longer an escape. They become a living arsenal that can never stop growing, never stop transforming, never stop feeding. If the grim darkness of the far future has taught humanity anything, it's that even a single mistake can unmake a world. Imagine, then, what it means to make a living weapon that cannot control its own hunger. Before we continue, breathe, steel yourself, and if you're drawn to stories of forbidden technology, cursed flesh, and weapons that dream, then this is a tale made for you, if the Emperor wills it. And if you find value in journeys like this, then like, subscribe, and share this video with others so they too can descend into the abyss. The Manufactorum Vault was supposed to be abandoned. That was what the data slate had said, and what the senior engine seers had confirmed with solemn Binharic clicks and the grinding approval chants of rusted Vox grills. No one of rank cared what lay beneath this forgotten wing of the Forge complex. It was an old place, sealed long before our ancestors were born, a leftover machine crypt with dust-choked corridors and lifeless conduits. The kind of place where the air tasted of oxidized metal and stagnant oils. The kind of place where silence felt thicker than the walls themselves, as though the machines were holding their breath. I was only a junior tech adept then, a novice in the red robes of the Mechanicus, with my scalp newly shaved and my flesh freshly augmented. I still believed that all knowledge was sacred, that all data was a ladder leading toward the Omnissiah. Ignorance, I thought, was a sin, curiosity a virtue. When the engine seers ordered us into the vault to clear scrap and inventory forgotten relics, I felt honored. I thought I was walking into history. We worked in teams of 2, dragging out old cogitators and rust-slick servitors locked in power down. Their eyes glowed faint red when we touched them, but there was no spark of machine spirit left inside. The vault smelled of decay, yet the cogitators hummed faintly, running processes no one had commanded in centuries. I remember thinking it was strange. If there was no power, what fed the machines? But the others ignored it, so I did too. The Mechanicus teaches obedience before thought, so I obeyed. Hours passed, and the deeper we dug into the vault, the more ancient everything became. We found data coils older than the sector. We found weapon schematics etched into adamantine plates. And then I found it. It was a data slate unlike any I had seen. Its casing was not forged in the usual ferroplast or ceramite. It felt warm against my hands, warm like something alive. Its surface was covered in glyphs that pulsed a soft rhythmic light like a heartbeat. I should have reported it immediately. I should have taken it to the engine seers for cleansing and approval. But the moment my fingertips brushed the glyphs, they flickered and rearranged themselves into something intelligible. They wanted to be read. I should have walked away. Instead, I activated the slate. The first lines of code streamed across the screen like a waterfall of light. Not binary, not Binharic scripture. Something else. The symbols were familiar, and yet not twisted versions of holy cant, as though a machine spirit had learned language alone in the dark and taught itself new rules. My breath caught. This was knowledge. Forbidden, yes, but knowledge. The slate pulsed again, and the code changed. At first I thought it was a system update, a simple command chain rewriting itself. But as the symbols crawled across the display, I felt something strange in my fingertips, a tingling sensation, like static bleeding into my flesh. I stared as the code shifted, no longer scrolling vertically. It coiled sideways, forming shapes that looked disturbingly like organic cells under a magnifier. Long strings of machine instruction twined like muscle fibers, interlacing with encryption keys that beat like tiny hearts. That was when the first whisper came, not through my ears, but through the metal implants in my skull, except the voice wasn't human. It wasn't mechanical either. It was something in between. Something stretched across both realms, like a bridge of living steel. My breath froze. I tried to drop the slate, but my hands didn't obey. My metallic fingertips locked into place, clutching the device as though welded to it. Panic surged through me, and I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to taste copper. The metallic tang grounded me, reminded me I was flesh. But the slate pulsed again. The code burrowed into my vision, burning itself into afterimages behind my eyelids. My mechadendrite twitched violently. My internal augmetics hummed like they were being rewritten from the inside. My heart pounded against my ribs, irregular and desperate. I wanted to scream, but the vault was so silent it felt like a scream would be swallowed whole. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The code froze. The slate went dark. My fingers released. I staggered back, eyes wide, chest heaving. The machines around me hummed louder, faint lights flickering awake as if sensing a new power source. The air warmed. The dust shook. I should have run. Instead, I stared at the slate lying at my feet like a dead thing. And I picked it up. Because despite the fear burning in my blood, something else had awakened inside me. A spark. A hunger to know what I had just touched. If I had walked away then, the vault might still be silent. The forges above might still breathe normally. My brothers and sisters in the Mechanicus might still have their lives. But knowledge had dug its claws into me, and I could not resist. I carried the slate back to my hab cell, hiding it beneath the folds of my robe. I remember how heavy it felt, as though the gravity of that single object was greater than the forge world itself. Every step made the implants in my skull buzz, a faint static itch crawling beneath bone. Inside my hab, I sealed the door, dimmed the lumen strip, and placed the slate on the cogitator altar. The Omnissiah's icon loomed above it, carved from sacred steel. I whispered a prayer to the machine spirit, voice shaking. The slate awakened again. But this time, the code didn't display as symbols. It showed images, blueprints of weapons I did not recognize, designs of guns that did not obey the laws of metal or physics. Weapons grown, not forged. Firing mechanisms fused to bone. Ammunition that beat like organs. Rifles that bled when fired. My stomach twisted, and I staggered away from the cogitator, bile rising in my throat. This was tech heresy, blasphemy, a violation of every decree of the cult Mechanicus, and yet I could not look away. The slate pulsed, and the images morphed into something else. Diagrams of the human body. Nanostructures weaving themselves into sinew. Metal threading through cells. Guns blooming from flesh like mechanical flowers. My hands trembled. I could feel something stirring in me. The implants in my arms growing warm. The mechadendrite extending from my spine curled toward the screen on its own, as though curious. As though hungry, I slammed my hand down on the power rune. The slate went black. Silence crashed over the room. My heart pounded so loudly it felt like the only sound in the world. I backed away from the altar, staring at the dark slate with wide, terrified eyes. What had I awakened? What had I allowed into my mind? There was a knock at my door. 3 soft taps. Too soft for Skitarii automation. Too measured for engine seers. A human knock. Tech Adept Verus, a voice called. It was Lysa, another junior adept assigned to the vault detail. Her voice was steady, but it carried a tremor. "Did you hear that?" I opened the door. Her face was pale, her augmetic eye flickering with interference. And then I heard it too, the distant sound of alarms, not the blaring commanding sirens of invasion or reactor breach. Quiet alarms, subtle, meant for internal containment. Something was wrong in the manufacture room above us. We ran. The lifts were locked out, so we took the maintenance ladders. Halfway up, the rungs began vibrating beneath our hands. The entire forge trembled like a living beast. Hydraulic pumps hissed, coolant systems roared, and machine prayers poured from unseen vox emitters in broken, corrupted binharik that made my skin crawl. When we reached the upper levels, heat washed over us. The forge floor was alive, literally. Steel plating rippled like flesh beneath promethium-lit corridors. Weapons racks bulged, their metal swelling and bursting as barrels elongated and twisted into shapes that should not exist. Servitors spasmed in their charging alcoves, cables tearing free as their mechanical arms formed new joints, new barrels, new mutilations. Lysa screamed. A servitor turned toward her, not with eyes, but with 2 gaping muzzle ports that bloomed where its cheeks should have been. Without warning, they fired, superheated slugs exploding from its face. I grabbed Lysa and pulled her behind a collapsed conveyor bank as the shots punched molten holes in the wall. "What is happening?" she gasped, shaking violently. I didn't have an answer, but deep in my augmetics, Deeper still in my thoughts, I felt the answer forming. The code I had read was not just information. It was a seed, a living fragment, and it was spreading. We crawled through the shattered forge, dodging spasming servitors and exploding ammo vats. Every machine we passed twitched as though possessed. Mechadendrites writhed across the floor like metal serpents. Cogitator screens flashed with corrupted code, the same twisting glyphs I had seen earlier, and then I felt it happening inside me. A pulse, a twitch beneath the skin of my arm. My fingers stiffened, joints clicking audibly. I held up my hand and watched in horror as the steel augmetic plating rippled, shifting like liquid metal. Lysa saw it too. Her eyes widened with terror. "Varus!" I shook my head violently, slamming my fist against a steel pillar. The plating shuddered, but it remained solid. Too solid. Denser than before. The slate had rewritten me. Voices echoed through the forge, distant and terrified. Skitarii patrols calling in breach reports. Enginseers attempting to regain control. The alarms grew louder, more frantic. Something massive moved in the shadows of the manufactorum. Something heavy, something growing. Lysa grabbed my arm. "We have to go. The Magos will know what to do." I stared at her, the weight of dread crushing my chest. If the Magos saw what was happening to me, they would destroy me on sight, purge me with fire and melt my remains into scrap. I knew the Mechanicus. Mercy was not in its vocabulary, but staying meant death too. We ran again. At the far end of the manufactorum, a blast door began to lower. Lysa screamed for the Skitarii sentinels to wait, but their crimson armor did not turn. Their glowing visors remained forward, weapons aimed into the firelit smog ahead. They didn't see us, or didn't care. We dove beneath the descending door, scraping our robes and tearing our skin on jagged metal. The blast door slammed shut behind us with the thunder of finality. Silence. We were in an old transit corridor, lit by a few flickering lumen strips. The air smelled less of burning metal and more of dust and cold stone. Lysa gasped, clutching her chest, tears streaking grime across her cheeks. I looked down at my arm. The plating had stilled, but it was different now, smoother, darker, as though newly forged. My veins beneath the augmetic interface pulsed with a faint metallic sheen. Something inside me shifted, not painfully, but with intent. Lysa followed my gaze. "What did you find in that vault?" she whispered, my throat tightened. The truth lodged like a blade between my ribs. "I don't know," I lied, "but it's not just the machines anymore." Somewhere, deep in the manufactorum we had escaped, a sound echoed, a roar of warped metal, a chorus of weapons firing in uncontrolled frenzy. The walls shook, dust raining from the ceiling, and in my arm, the plating rippled again, this time with purpose. The virus had taken root, and the transformation had only begun. We hid in the transit corridor for hours, long after the manufactorum fell silent again. Silence was worse than the screams, worse than the gunfire, worse than the distorted machine voices tearing themselves apart. Silence meant everything had finished changing. Silence meant something had won. Lysa sat across from me, hugging her knees, her augmetic eye flickering like a dying lumen. The crimson of her apprentice robes was smudged with oil and soot, and she kept glancing at my arm, as if waiting for it to split open and become something unholy in front of her. I didn't blame her. I was afraid to look at it myself. Every few minutes, a pulse moved beneath the metal, like a heartbeat that did not belong to me. We whispered prayers to the Omnissiah, because that was what we were taught to do when logic failed. But faith was thin when the walls still hummed with corrupted code, and the faint echo of mechanized screams lingered like ghosts. Eventually, Lysa stood, trembling. "We have to go," she said. "If the forge above is lost, the Skitarii will purge the entire deck. We'll be sealed in and left to starve." I nodded, though a sick feeling told me starvation would be a mercy compared to what might happen if the virus finished whatever it had started inside me. We kept to the maintenance passages, avoiding primary corridors where Skitarii patrols might sweep through. The deeper we travelled into the forge world's understructure, the colder the air became. Frost clung to conduits pulsing with power. Ancient pipes dripped condensation that pattered softly onto metal floors. Our footsteps echoed too loudly, each one scraping against steel like accusation. Lysa walked ahead, scanning with her augmetic eye, searching for heat signatures or life signs. I followed her silently, afraid that if I spoke, my voice would crack apart in fear. I could feel the virus thinking, though that made no sense. Viruses do not think. Yet something in me shifted with each breath, as though metal and flesh were negotiating their ownership of my body. We reached a sealed hatch leading into a forgotten cogitator archive, an old section that stored maintenance logs and data prayers from centuries before. Lisa pried open the hatch with a servo tool, and we slipped inside. The archive was massive. Vaulted ceilings arched above us, lit by cold blue lumen strips. Thousands of cogitators lined the walls, each one dormant and coated in dust. The air smelled of ancient ozone and paper-thin silence. Here, nothing had been touched by corruption or fire. The machines slept peacefully, like tombstones of forgotten knowledge. "We can hide here," Lisa whispered, "until the Skitarii restore order." I wanted to believe her, but the moment I stepped inside, every cogitator in the vault flickered awake. Lisa gasped. Screens flared to life in a wave of blue light, glyphs cascading across them like waterfalls. The engines beneath the floor rumbled, vibrating up through my boots and into my bones. One by one, the cogitators began transmitting data, not from any central network, but from me. The virus was using me as a conduit. Lisa turned toward me, terror etched across her face. "Varus, stop it!" "I can't," I choked out. "Lisa, I can't control it." The glyphs pouring across the cogitator screens were the same ones I had seen in the vault. Twisting, pulsing, corrupting. The air filled with the hum of awakening machine spirits, but their voices were wrong, like choirs singing in a language no human tongue was meant to form. Without warning, the nearest cogitator burst open, metal cracked like bone. Cables writhed out of the machine in a tangle of serpentine coils, grasping at the floor, seeking flesh. Lisa screamed and stumbled backward. I pulled her behind a support pillar as the machine tore itself apart, wires snapping and reforming into tendrils tipped with metal barbs. This was not Mechanicus craftsmanship. It was mutation, evolution, a machine becoming something alive. The tendrils lashed toward us, clicking like beetle legs. I shoved Lisa aside and threw myself forward. My arm moved on its own, too fast, too strong. My fingers elongated, metallic plating unfolding into jagged blades. I staggered, horrified, but the limb was no longer mine to command. With a vicious, unnatural motion, my augmetic hand sliced through the first cable tendril, severing it from the machine. The tendril spasmed like a dying snake, sparks and oil spraying across the floor. I stared at my arm, breath caught in my chest. It had protected me. It had killed. Lisa stared, eyes wide with horror and something else, recognition. "Varus, your arm." "I know," I whispered. "I know." Another cogitator ruptured, then another. The vault groaned under the weight of its own resurrection. Lisa grabbed my sleeve, her voice trembling. "We have to warn someone. The Magos, the Skitarii. Someone has to know." I shook my head. "If they see me like this, they'll destroy me. Then I'll speak," she pleaded. "They'll listen to me. They have to." She didn't understand. The Mechanicus did not listen. It purged, but there was no time to argue. The cogitators were evolving, fusing together into something hideous. A mass of cables and steel tore free from the floor, forming a towering shape that resembled a machine only in the loosest sense. It had no face, but its cables quivered like antennae, scanning, searching. We ran. The vault doors slid shut behind us, sealing the abomination, but not for long. The metal of the door bulged inward, warping, softening, as if the machine behind it was eating its way through. Lisa pulled me toward a service shaft and climbed. I followed, though my arm twitched, metal rippling under the skinless plating. It wanted to fight. It wanted to grow. We ascended ladder after ladder until we reached a pressure hatch marked with an ancient sigil, the emblem of a maintenance route leading toward the upper forges. Lisa forced it open and pulled herself into a dim corridor of pipework and heat shimmer. I climbed after her, lungs burning, muscles trembling with fear, and something darker. Anticipation. When we reached the end of the passage, we found the forge world changed. Not destroyed, not silent, alive. The walls pulsed like veins, carrying molten metal in waves instead of steady conduits. Rialto cranes twisted overhead like insect limbs, dripping steel droplets that sizzled on the floor. Servitors wandered aimlessly, their arms reshaped into blades and cannons. Some crawled, legs melted into fused masses of bone and metal. Others hung suspended from cable webs, twitching as their bodies reconfigured into living weapons. Lysa covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "This is impossible." "This is the Obliterator Virus," I whispered. "It doesn't just infect flesh, it infects machines. Anything built for war becomes a part of it." Her gaze snapped toward me. "How do you know that?" "Because it was telling me, from somewhere deep in my augmetics, knowledge pulsed like blood. Schematics flickered across my vision. Guns that could bloom from bone, armor that could grow like skin. Weapons could be born inside me. I could feel them, like phantom limbs waiting to form." I swallowed back bile. "We have to get off the Forge world." "And go where?" Lysa demanded. "If the virus is in you, you'll spread it." Her voice broke on the last word. I stared at her, a hollow ache settling in my chest. She was right. I was infected. I was a vector. Walking into any Imperial station, any shuttle, any world would doom them. I was a weapon, waiting to be born. But something worse caught my attention. The Forge world was not screaming anymore. It was chanting. From deep within the manufactorum, a low mechanical hum echoed, synchronized like a heartbeat. Every servitor, every corrupted machine, every twisted cogitator was chanting in Binharic liturgy, words that were not holy, but mockeries of devotion. The virus was preaching. Machines preached when they had something to worship. A new surge of pain knifed through my arm. I collapsed to my knees, gasping. Metal rippled beneath my skin, rising, reshaping. Lysa grabbed my shoulders, voice cracking. "Varys, fight it!" I tried. "Emperor, help me," I tried. But my body no longer listened. The virus had waited long enough. My forearm split open, not tearing, but unfolding. Metal peeled back like petals, and beneath, a barrel of living steel spiraled outward. Cables fused to sinew, bone welded to gunmetal. A weapon grew from my flesh, humming with lethal power. Lysa fell back, eyes wide. "No!" I screamed, a sound ripped from somewhere primal. Not from pain, but from the shattering realization of what I was becoming. A weapon, a monster, an obliterator. The barrel retracted, sealing itself beneath layers of shifting metal. The skin closed seamlessly. My arm looked normal again, almost. A faint lattice of metal veins pulsed beneath the surface. The virus had finished its first stage. Lysa stared at me, her expression torn between compassion and pure terror. "Varys, we have to find a way to stop it. There has to be a way." I shook my head slowly. "You don't stop the Obliterator virus. Once it's in you, it grows. It learns, it evolves. It turns you into a living arsenal." She stepped forward, voice trembling. "You're still human." I looked at my arm. I wasn't sure anymore. But then a new sound echoed down the corridor. Heavy, synchronized footsteps. Metallic boots striking steel in perfect unison. Skitarii. For a heartbeat, hope flared in Lysa's eyes. For me, only fear. If the Skitarii saw what I had become, they would not ask questions. They would open fire, purge the flesh, purge the data, purge me, and yet another feeling pulsed beneath my skin. Danger, not from the Skitarii, from something bigger, something waking. The chanting grew louder. The walls trembled. The forge roared like a beast drawing breath. And beneath my skin, the virus quivered in response, as though answering a call. I grabbed Lysa's hand. "We can't stay," I whispered. "If we do, we'll die." She didn't argue. She didn't look back. Together, we ran toward the sound of marching Skitarii, not realizing that rescue and execution walked on the same iron feet, and that every step brought us closer to the moment when my humanity would matter far less than the weapon growing inside me. The corridor shook with every synchronized step of the Skitarii. Their steel-shod feet hammered the deck in perfect cadence, a rhythm that once brought reassurance, but now only promised judgment. Their helms glowed with cold crimson optics, scanning for heat signatures, movement, irregularity. We pressed ourselves into the shadow beneath a rusted maintenance gantry, praying the machines of war saw only empty steel and cooling pipes. The Skitarii advanced in formation, 12 of them, clad in Mars-red armor, their visors flickering with static as they processed the corrupted machine chants reverberating through the forges. Lysa trembled beside me. She'd always spoken of the Skitarii as holy servants of the Omnissiah, protectors against tech heresy. Now, as they moved past like executioners, her beliefs cracked a little more. One of them paused. Its optics flared brighter, scanning the darkness. My breath locked in my throat. For a moment, I was certain it could hear the weapon beating inside my flesh, like a second heart made of gunmetal. Then the deck beneath its feet quivered, just faintly. The Skitarius turned its head toward the manufactory above, where the chanting rose like a hideous choir. With no further hesitation, the squad marched on, weaponized limbs aimed upward, toward the source of corruption. When the Skitari vanished into the darkness, Lisa exhaled shakily. "They'll be slaughtered," she whispered. "They don't understand what they're facing." "They understand enough," I said, though I wasn't sure. The virus moved like thought. The machines didn't just mutate, they obeyed something. A command, a will. We waited until the last mechanical footfall faded, then crawled from our hiding place. The corridor branch ahead led downward toward the transport tunnels. Routes that might connect to orbital supply stations, maybe even a tram leading out of the Manufactorum's infected heart. If we were lucky, if we had time, if I didn't lose myself first, pain struck without warning. White-hot, searing, electrifying pain. My knees buckled. A strangled shout tore from my throat. My right arm convulsed, metal shifting beneath the skin. Lysa rushed to me, grabbing my shoulder. "Varys, what's happening?" "I don't know," I gasped. But I did know. The virus was building. It needed more. My body was the forge, my blood the fuel, my vision swam. Schematics flashed across the inside of my eyelids. Guns, grenades, plasma coiling through synthetic arteries. Magma-burned barrels extruding from bone. My body was blueprinting weapons the galaxy had never seen. My flesh begged to form them. I pressed my metal hand to the floor and grit my teeth as the tremors subsided. For the moment, the weapon slumbered. Lisa watched me with a look I recognized, horror framed by compassion. There has to be a way to treat it. Some quarantine, something the Mechanicus hasn't lost. "No cure," I whispered. "No quarantine. Once the virus takes root, it rewrites everything. Tech priests incinerate carriers before the transformation completes." Lysa's throat tightened. "Then we won't let them find you." I almost laughed. The sound that left my throat wasn't human. "You saw the Skitari. If they can't purge this, no one can." We moved again, slow, quiet, careful. The deeper we went, the more the Manufactorum resembled a battlefield. Walls warped into rib-like arcs. Conveyor belts pulsed with meat-metal shapes that groaned like living steel. Servitors lay dismantled on the floor, their limbs fused into weapon racks that sprouted rifle barrels like thorns. The virus didn't just feed, it colonized. The chanting grew louder, echoing from every machine, from every wall, from the guns bolted to Skitari arms, a mechanical litany of worship for a god that was not the Omnissiah. We turned a corner and froze. At the far end of the maintenance corridor, the Skitari squad had stopped. Their red armor reflected in molten pools of slag metal beneath them. In the center of the tunnel lay a cluster of writhing steel cables, pulsing with liquid metal. The squad leader stepped forward, pointing a radium rifle. "Biomechanical corruption detected." "Stand down!" the mass answered. It rose. A towering amalgamation of servitor torsos, cogitator housings, and twisted pistons shuddered upright, metal screaming as it stretched. Its limbs ended not in hands, but in plasma vents, and rotary cannons made of bone and iron. Its voice was a warped vox distortion, layers of machine speech bleeding into brutal binary. "We grow." The Skitari opened fire. Bolts of white-hot energy lanced down the corridor. The monstrosity staggered but did not fall. Its torso split open like a blooming flower of steel, revealing a furnace heart pulsing with molten ore. It roared. The temperature spiked. The air shimmered, and from its body, dozens of gun barrels unfurled like vines. It returned fire. The first volley vaporized the squad leader, armor melting into slag. Another Skitarius exploded into shards of metal and bone. Lisa grabbed my arm, pulling me back around the corner as the corridor filled with the thunder of weapons. The noise shook the floor, rattling teeth in our skulls. The virus had turned machines into predators, and they hunted without fear. We sprinted for the lower tunnels. Alarms blared overhead, drowning out the chanting. Somewhere, the Forge World's machine spirits were trying to purge the infection by sealing entire sectors behind blast shields and venting them into space. But the virus was faster. When we reached a stairwell, the world shook violently. The ceiling split open. Superheated steam vented downward, and spears of metal punched through the deck, nearly impaling us. We turned and hurled ourselves through a doorway into a storage chamber filled with crates and rusted industrial loaders. The moment the door sealed behind us, silence settled. Heavy, suffocating silence. Lisa leaned against a crate, gasping. Sweat streaked through soot across her face. Emperor, Emperor, protect us! I knelt on the floor, breathing hard. My body felt too heavy. Blood thick as molten iron. My heartbeat made the metal in my veins vibrate, and with every pulse, I sensed new weapons wanting to form. Plasma coils in my ribs, grenade chambers in my spine, autocannons in my arms. The virus was no longer dormant. It was growing faster. We can't stay underground, Lisa said. If the virus spreads to the reactor cores, the entire Forge world could go critical. Then we need out, I said. A shuttle, a tram, something. And if the Skitarii board it, I swallowed. My voice was barely more than a rasp. We don't tell them. Varys, we don't tell anyone. Lisa stared at me, horrified. You'll be a contagion. I already am. A metallic groan reverberated through the walls. Something was moving nearby, something massive. The door began to bow inward, metal bending as claws scraped along its surface. Lisa grabbed my wrist, panic surging through her body. We're out of time. No, I said, standing slowly. I'm out of time. I could feel the machine within me awakening. My arm grew heavy. Plating rippled across my skin, crawling up my shoulder. Muscle fibers hardened into interlocking alloy. The hum in my bones became a weapon charging itself. The virus wanted to break the door down and slaughter whatever was beyond it, so I turned away. We're going up, I said, pointing to a chain of rusted platforms and catwalks rising into the shadowed heights of the chamber. Service elevator, maintenance rails, anything that leads to the surface. Lisa followed without hesitation. Perhaps madness or faith. At that point, they were the same. Halfway up, a deafening crash split the chamber open. The door tore free of its hinges. The monster that crawled through was a pile of loader arms, ore crushers, and cogitator panels fused into something like a scorpion of steel. Its tail ended in a plasma torch that glowed white hot. It spotted us instantly. Lisa froze. I shoved her upward. Go! The machine lunged. Its torch tail sliced through the catwalk, severing it. Metal shrieked. We fell. I grabbed a rail with my good hand, my human hand, and held on as the platform swung wildly, dangling over the industrial abyss. The abomination crawled toward us, its legs stabbing into the metal with surgical precision. Lisa clung to my back, trembling. The rail groaned, threatening to break. The virus didn't wait. My weapon arm tore itself open, plating splitting with a wet metallic sound. A barrel of bone steel spiraled outward, locking into place. Ammunition fed through my veins. My heart pumped gunfire. The cannon roared. A slug the size of a man's fist punched through the creature's torso, ripping it apart in a spray of molten oil and gears. The monster collapsed, twitching, sparks spraying across the chamber. My arm sealed itself again, calm, silent, patient. Lisa stared at me as if seeing a ghost, not just of who I was, but of what I would become, Varys. Her voice shook. You can't fight it. It's turning you into them. I know. You'll lose yourself. I know. Tears welled in her eyes. Then why keep fighting? I climbed. The answer hurt more than the virus. Because if I stop, I won't be Varys anymore at all. We reached a maintenance lift, ancient, rusted, but intact. Lisa activated the controls. The platform shuddered, then began to rise along a narrow shaft glowing with emergency lights. The chanting faded beneath us. The air grew cleaner. The heat dimmed. Then the lift halted with a violent jolt. Above us voices echoed. Skitarii commands. Someone yelled coordinates. Someone else ordered purgation protocols. There was the heavy clank of armored boots. We weren't alone. A voice boomed from above, distorted through Vox amplifiers. Detected biomantic irregularities. Identify yourselves. Lisa's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Her gaze flicked to my arm, then to the Skitarii silhouettes above. If they saw what I was. I stepped forward, forcing the tremor from my voice. Tech Adept Varys, Apprentice Lisa, we request containment. The manufactorum is compromised. The lead Skitarius aimed its arc rifle directly at my chest. Flesh analysis initiated. I felt my veins pulse with gunmetal. My arm twitched. The weapon beneath my skin stirred, ready to kill. Lisa squeezed my hand. Hold on, she whispered. For a moment. Just a moment. I did. The weapon stilled. The virus hissed like a starving beast denied prey. I raise both hands slowly. Don't shoot. I can help. I understand the corruption. I can fix it. A lie. Or maybe a hope. The Skitarii processed my claim. Its cogitators clicked. Its visor flared. Biological corruption detected. Subject deemed hostile. Purge authorized. The arc rifle charged. My body whispered a truth I didn't want to believe. I could kill them all. With a single thought. The weapon inside me waited, aching to be born. And I had seconds to decide whether I would use it. The charged crackle of the arc rifle filled the narrow lift shaft, a rising electric hiss that set the metal beneath our feet vibrating. My pulse hammered in time with it. I could feel every circuit thread of the weapon encoded into my bones begging for release, like a caged animal pressing claws against the brittle walls of my skull. Lysa's hand trembled in mine. She knew the Skitarii would kill us, and she knew that if I tried to fight, something far worse might happen. The lead Skitarius braced, targeting cogitators, aligning with mechanical certainty. Lysa stepped in front of me, her voice shaking as she shouted upward. He's infected, but he saved me. He saved himself. There's consciousness left. There's control. The machine warrior did not hesitate. Control is irrelevant. Contamination cannot be allowed into the greater network. Purgation required. The rifle discharged. At that moment, something inside me broke, not a bone, not a muscle, not my will. It was the last flimsy barrier my mind had built to contain the virus. The arcbolt was death, bright and absolute. My body moved on instinct. Not my own, but something woven through my cells, older than memory yet freshly born. My arm exploded outward, plating tearing free, metal lancing into shape. A cannon formed instantaneously, coil barrel glowing white hot. I didn't aim it. I didn't think. My heart fired it like a command word. A blast of molten steel ripped through the air. The arc bolt struck the weapon's plating and fizzled into molten droplets. The cannon's shot tore through the lift ceiling in a thunderous detonation of light and metal shards. Skitarii toppled, armor perforated, vox grills sparking. Bodies fell, scattering across the upper platform. The blast deafened me. Lysa screamed as the lift bucked and sparks rained from the control panel. My weapon arm retreated, sealing itself back into my flesh with a sickening hiss. For a heartbeat, I felt nothing. No thought, no emotion. Only the echo of recoil pulsing through my veins. Then horror returned. I gasped, clutching my head as the virus poured triumph through my nerves, like molten joy. It had defended itself. It had grown stronger. I had let it. Lysa grabbed my shoulders. Her eyes were wide, terrified, but she did not run. She never ran. Varys, listen to me. You're still here. You can still stop it. I'm losing control. No, she said, gripping my face, forcing me to meet her eyes. You killed Skitarii because they tried to kill you. That wasn't corruption. That was survival. She didn't believe it. I could see the fear she tried to bury, but I clung to her words all the same. It was all I had. The lift resumed its climb automatically, auto-controls rerouting around the damaged circuits. The shaft opened into a massive transit terminal, once a nexus for ore shipments and mechanized laborers. Now, it was a grave. Wrecked transports lay scattered across the platform, some torn open from the inside as if something had burst its way out. The air smelled of scorched oil and burned flesh, a metallic chanting, faint, distorted, reverberated from deeper within the facility. At the far end stood a maglev tram, its doors cracked open, interior dark but intact. A miracle, maybe the last. We ran for it, past dead servitors slumped against autoloaders with their skulls cracked open and their limbs fused to cargo crates, past Skitarii impaled on railings or melted to the decking. The virus had hit this place hard, too hard. It wasn't spreading randomly anymore. The destruction followed a pattern, as though something was directing it. We reached the tram. I forced the warped doors open with my mechanical hand. Inside, rows of passenger seats waited beneath flickering lumen strips. The air smelled like dust and ozone, stale but breathable. Lysa rushed to the controls, fingers flying across cracked data slates. If the track isn't severed, we can reach the outer platforms. They might have shuttles. If not, her voice faltered. There are quarantine tunnels leading toward the surface cities. Even quarantine sounded like paradise compared to the forge we had escaped. I'll keep watch, I said, turning toward the doors. But as I looked out across the terminal, shadows moved. Shapes, human once maybe, now tall and jagged, plated in iron sinew and weapon carapace. Corrupted servitors, not mindless anymore. They walked with intention, patrols, guardians. One of them raised its head. Its vox grill split open, revealing a tangle of weapon barrels like teeth. Its mechanical eye began to glow. They had found us. "Lysa," I whispered. "We need to go now." She slammed her hand against the activation rune. The tram engine sputtered, whining in protest. The corrupted servitors broke into a run, feet pounding the steel. Some had saw blades for legs, some had flamers fused to their arms, others dragged heavy autocannons behind them like hunting beasts. The tram lurched. A flicker of movement flashed at the corner of my eye. Something scuttling along the walls and ceiling. Mechanical limbs skittering. Multi-jointed weapons snapping open. The train jerked forward, then accelerated sharply. Metal shrieked beneath us as sparks flew from the tracks. We pulled out of the terminal just as a wave of corrupted servitors slammed into the closing doors, their claws screeching against steel. We escaped by seconds. Lysa collapsed into a seat, shaking. "Emperor, we made it, but I knew escape was temporary. The virus was adapting, chasing, hunting." I stared down at my hand, my corrupted arm, and watched the metal twitch beneath the skin, as though dreaming of new forms. The virus was no longer hiding. It was proud of what it had done, and it wanted more. The tram tore through the maglev tunnel at breakneck speed. Emergency lights strobed past, painting the walls in a sick rhythm of red and black. My breathing grew shallow. A pressure built behind my ribs, like a weapon hatching. "Varys," Lysa said softly. "What's happening?" "I don't know," I lied, because I did know. Every time I used the weapon, the virus learned from me. It evolved. It merged deeper into my flesh. Soon, there would be no difference between man and machine. Soon, I would not speak with a human voice at all. The train screeched, sparks lighting the tunnel. Lysa braced herself against the console. "The track ahead is—" A tremor shuddered through the carriage. The lights died. For a heartbeat, we travelled in perfect darkness. Then the walls began to pulse. Electrical panels glowed with infected circuitry. Pipes bulged with liquid metal. The tram was no longer gliding along a rail. It was being pulled, dragged towards something deeper. "No," I whispered. "It's in the infrastructure." The Obliterator Virus wasn't just consuming machines. It was rewriting the maglev network itself. The train hurtled faster. Too fast. The pressure forced us back in our seats, the deck vibrating with mechanical hunger. In the distance, ahead of us, a cavern of molten light opened. A forge bay overtaken by the virus, turned into a cathedral of weaponized flesh and iron. The chanting returned, not from speakers, from the steel itself. Lysa screamed as the tram launched off the track and crashed through a wall of mutated steel. We were thrown against the decking. Pain lanced through my body. The weapon under my skin woke, reacting to impact, preparing to fire. I forced it down with everything I had left. When I pulled myself upright, I saw where we had landed. A cathedral of iron and bone. Towers of living steel rose toward a starless ceiling, pulsing with molten ore. Chains of fused servitors hung from the rafters like living chandeliers. Their limbs transformed into cannons and missile racks. At the chamber's center, a colossal figure waited, an amalgamation of corrupted tech priests, skitari, servitors, and war machines fused into a single entity. A titan of flesh metal, its voice filled the chamber. "Welcome," Lysa whimpered. What is that?" I knew the answer. Even before it spoke, even before its metal eyes found mine and recognized me, it was what we would all become. The virus was not random. It was not a plague. It was a mind, a singular gestalt consciousness built from the bodies and memories of every corrupted soul. It absorbed knowledge as quickly as it consumed flesh. Its weapons were not imitations. They were innovations, improvements, evolution. "You are like us," the Titan said. But incomplete, my heart hammered. "I'll never join you," the Titan stepped forward. With each move, its weapon limbs shifted, forming new configurations. Plasma coils, melter barrels, rotary cannons. "You already have." The weapon in my arm reacted to its presence, magnetized, drawn, eager. I felt its hunger rise. This was not my imagination. The machine inside me recognized the thing before us. Lysa tried to pull me back, but my legs wouldn't move. My body leaned toward the Titan, pulled by invisible threads of data and corrupted steel. I gritted my teeth. "You want control," the Titan laughed. a grinding noise like metal screaming. "We want evolution." It raised one of its massive arms. Thousands of barrels unfolded like a metallic flower. Lysa screamed and tried to shield me, as though she could stop a god of iron from killing us. But the Titan didn't fire. It waited. It wanted me to shoot first. The virus inside me pulsed, forcing my arm outward. Metal surged beneath the skin. A weapon began forming. Barrel, trigger, ammunition chamber. If I finished the transformation, I would never turn back. The last trace of humanity would dissolve into binary instinct. I fought it, every muscle shaking, every bone grinding. Then Lysa grabbed my arm, her voice cracked. "Don't let it decide who you are." I met her eyes. For a moment, the world narrowed to that single, fragile human connection. The thing the virus could not replicate, could not consume, could not weaponize. Pain tore through me. The virus howled in my blood, but for the first time I did not yield. The weapon receded. The barrel collapsed, my skin sealed, and the Titan screamed. Not with rage, but with confusion. It had never been denied. Lysa took my hand and pulled me backward. "Run." The Titan's confusion lasted only an instant. Then every gun barrel in the chamber turned toward us. We ran through the cathedral of steel as the Titan unleashed a storm of fire that turned the world into light and shrapnel. I dragged Lysa behind a pillar of fused servitors, metal raining like molten rain around us. A blast tore open the floor. We fell into darkness, tumbling into a lower maintenance bay. I hit the deck hard. My vision swam. Something cracked in my ribs. Bone or metal. I couldn't tell anymore. Lysa leaned over me, sobbing. "You're still you. You're still Varys." But the virus whispered otherwise. Not in words, in designs. Blueprints flashing behind my eyes. Schematics for weapons that could tear the Titan apart. I pushed myself upright. Blood dripped from my mouth, dark, metallic. My veins glowed faintly beneath the skin. The Titan's roar echoed through the tunnels above, shaking dust from the ceiling. It was hunting us. And now I understood something terrible. It didn't want to kill me. It wanted to finish me. Somewhere deep inside, the virus came to a conclusion. Cold, perfect, terrifying. To defeat the monster, I would have to become something much worse. The maintenance base swallowed us in darkness, but darkness was never safety in the forges of a corrupted world. Lysa's breathing came in sharp, uneven gasps, echoing faintly through the corridor. I could hear the distant grinding of metal on metal above us, the Titan dragging its colossal form across decks and bulkheads that groaned under its weight. Every vibration in the steel was a reminder that it was searching, analyzing, adapting. There was no such thing as hiding from something born of data, blood, and machine memory. It could taste every circuit and hear every heartbeat. A flickering lumen strip crackled to life along the ceiling. Not enough to see clearly, just enough to realize we were deep, possibly near power conduits feeding from the outer manufacturing levels. The floor was slick with oil and blood, some of it human, some of it molten alloy that pulsed like a viscous heartbeat. I tried to stand, but my left leg spasmed. Flesh tightened, bone reknit, metal filaments snapped into place without my permission. Lysa noticed and helped me up, though her hands trembled as if every second touching me meant gambling her life. "Can you walk?" she whispered. "Yes," I answered, though the word felt heavy in my throat. A machine does not limp. It advances. We moved through the corridor, each step accompanied by the soft chime of distant cogitators hijacked by the virus. Screens pulse-flashed with half-formed weapons, schematics, and corrupted binary prayers. The Manufactorum had become a shrine of mechanical faith, devoted to the birth of something colossal. Lysa kept glancing at me, trying to judge if I was still myself. She didn't say the words, because she was afraid speaking them aloud would make them real. Somewhere behind us, a metal shriek tore through the ducts. The Titan had found a maintenance shaft large enough to follow. That impossibility alone proved how quickly it was adapting. The monstrous unity of bodies above wanted me alive, not because I was special, but because I was incomplete. The final data string, the final mutation. The virus wanted a perfect host, and I was the prototype. As we reached the far end of the bay, a blast door waited. Thick, reinforced, probably sealed for decades. Lysa dropped to her knees beside its access panel, stripping wires and jamming a diagnostic tool into the cracked ports. Sparks flew. A warning sigil lit up on the door. "Biomechanical corruption detected. It knows we're here," she whispered. It's locked everything. A tremor shuddered through the deck. Lysa's eyes widened. The Titan was close now, each movement rattling pipes, shaking lumen fixtures loose from the ceiling. Dust rained down like the breath of a collapsing world. My infected arm twitched. I placed my hand on the blast door. The metal beneath my palm vibrated like a living muscle anticipating a wound. The virus stirred. A weapon blueprint unfolded in my mind. A shaped charge of molten plasma, the kind capable of melting ceramite. It wanted to form itself. It wanted to break us through. No! I hissed, jerking my hand back. Lisa stared at me. If you don't do something, it will break through that tunnel in seconds. If I used the weapon again, the virus would take one more piece of me. But if I didn't, we died here. Crushed under the Titan's guns, or pulled apart and absorbed into its body. I took a slow breath, forcing my racing heartbeat to calm. Step back. She did, though her eyes screamed that she was terrified for me, not of me. Pain lanced up my arm as the transformation began. The skin split open in a glowing seam, metal blooming outward like a deadly flower. A barrel pushed through my flesh, the bone beneath rearranging itself to serve as a focusing chamber. I could feel the virus accelerating my blood, converting biological mass into thermal payload. The air hummed. For the first time, I didn't fight it. The weapon fired. Sound vanished. Light engulfed the corridor. The blast door liquefied, metal cascading downward in molten streams. The floor beneath our feet shook violently. I staggered back, vision blurring, my breath shallow. The weapon retracted into my arm, sealing with a hiss. Lysa grabbed me as I nearly collapsed. "You're still here," she whispered, as if saying it made it true. We stepped into the chamber beyond, and froze. It wasn't a corridor. It was a launch dock. A small shuttle sat on the mag rails, half buried in dust and neglected maintenance equipment. Somehow, impossibly, it was intact. Its hull bore the faded insignia of the Astra Militarum, a supply transport or evacuation craft from a forgotten regiment. Salvation, sitting in the dark. But salvation always has a price. The hangar doors above were sealed by thick slabs of armored steel. Opening them would trigger alarms. Alarms would call the Titan. Even if we got the shuttle working, even if we reached orbit, the virus could be inside every system. It could spread beyond the Forge world. It could contaminate ships, stations, cities. I swallowed hard. "We can leave." Lisa didn't respond. She was staring at my arm, the skin still glowing faintly where metal had retracted. And then what? What if you change during flight? What if it takes over you completely and hijacks the ship? Then I'll fight it. Her eyes glistened with tears. "Varys, it's stronger every hour. And it's not just inside you. It's everywhere in this world. The Titan isn't a monster. It's a signal. It's calling others. If you leave, the virus leaves with you." She was right. I hated her for being right. A thunderous explosion echoed from the corridor behind us as the Titan tore through the bulkhead. We didn't have minutes. We had seconds. Lisa ran to the shuttle and powered up its engines. The deck vibrated as turbines screamed in protest. Dust blasted across the chamber. The armored bay doors above rattled as emergency override runes blinked. "Varys," she called. "Get in!" I didn't move. The virus inside me was speaking in sensations, not words. A cold command, a final directive. Assimilate. Evolve. Spread. I felt my heartbeat sinking with its rhythm. Spread. That was the real threat. Not death, infection. I took a step back from the shuttle. "Varys, what are you doing?" I turned to her, feeling the heat of transforming metal beneath my skin. "If I leave this planet, the virus leaves with me." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "We can find help. A medicae, a magos biologist. Someone who can... No one can remove it," I whispered. "You've seen what it does. It adapts to every weapon. It rewrites anything that tries to destroy it. If it reaches orbit, if it reaches another world, the Imperium will burn." The blast doors behind us exploded inward as the Titan entered the hangar. Its colossal silhouette filled the space, limbs shifting into new weapon forms. It saw the shuttle and roared, not with anger, but with hunger. It didn't want to kill the ship. It wanted to ride it to the stars. I stepped forward, and the virus inside me bloomed in response. My veins glowed, skin splitting to reveal threads of living alloy. My body became a furnace of searing pain and metallic instinct. But I wasn't surrendering. I was choosing. The Titan raised a massive cannon arm. Lysa screamed as a blast of incandescent energy seared the floor between us, sending shockwaves through the hangar. I didn't stop walking. My arm morphed into something new, bigger, heavier, more lethal than any weapon I had manifested before. The virus shaped it perfectly, like a sculptor that had always known the final form of its creation. For the first time, I didn't fight it. I guided it. The Titan charged. I fired. The blast was a beam of molten annihilation, a column of burning metal and plasma that tore through the Titan's chest and out its back. The creature staggered, shrieking in binary agony, limbs flailing as its internal systems overloaded. It collapsed, tearing through the floor and falling into the furnace levels below. The entire manufactorum shook. Lysa stared at me, horrified. "Awestruck, broken Varus," she whispered. "What are you becoming?" The answer was simple: a weapon, but a weapon still capable of choice. The hangar alarms wailed as fire spread across the deck. The shuttle engines roared, ready to launch. Lysa stood in the doorway, reaching out to me. "Come with me." I smiled. Small, human. The last expression I still remembered how to make. "If I leave, I doom every world I touch." She shook her head violently. "You'll die here." I felt the virus humming through my bones, reshaping, rewriting, preparing for something catastrophic. "Not yet." She took a step forward, and I activated the hangar release, sealing the shuttle entrance and locking her inside. She screamed my name, pounding against the viewport. I walked slowly toward the emergency console and slammed my hand into the manual override. The hangar doors groaned open, exposing a sky of oily black clouds and burning smokestacks. The shuttle launched, engines screaming, knives of flame cutting through the gloom. Lysa's face pressed to the glass, tears streaking down her cheeks as she reached for me. She would survive, and I would not let the virus reach her. The corrupted manufactorum collapsed around me, burning from within. The Titan's corpse writhed below, trying to reassemble itself. I stood at the edge of the hangar, weapon arm glowing molten white, ready to fire again. The last human thought I had left was a prayer. Not to the Emperor, not to salvation, but to memory. That somewhere, someone would remember that in the last moment. I chose not to spread destruction. I leapt after the Titan fire swallowed the world, and the virus screamed as I tore it apart from the inside while the furnaces consumed us, both, if even one trace of humanity remained in my corrupted flesh. Let it be this, that I died as Varus. Not a weapon, not an evolution, a man who refused to let the galaxy burn,